warn them of the wrath to come. Leaders was fighting leaders. There was tearing the people apart. Friends who used to live loving together, now hatred filling their heart. Neighbor was cussing neighbor. Whole villages in mayhem. I hear there wasn't listening to. I lay down in meditation. I took a journey spiritually. My eyes beheld a vision shone clearly in front of me. Now in the vision I saw an old man slowly playing a drum, humming a melody that was strange to me. And then he called me, he said, Dana, come. He arose and he showed me a country, beautiful everywhere, a land with endless bounty and riches beyond compare. Now there was enough for everybody to meet the material needs. But alas, when the old man showed me the people, they was all overpowered with greed. Oh, and the old man played the drum. The old man played the drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country and warn them of the wrath to come. And if you hear it, revelation time. This is revelation. Revelation, warn them of the word. He start to walk. Warn them of the wrath to come. Leaders was fighting leaders. There was tearing the people apart. Friends who used to live loving together, now hatred filling their heart. Neighbor was cussing neighbor. Whole villages in mayhem. I hear there wasn't listening to deceitful leaders who preaching false doctrine to them. Compassion gone out the window. Deviousness reigned instead. Morality was reading low, cause my people, they were spiritually dead. Oh, and the old man, he played drum. I said, the old man, he played the drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country and warn them of the road to come. And if you hear it, man, revelation. Oh, this is revelation. Revelation, warn them of the road. And then we take a little walk now. Warn them of the road to come. And then he said, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills, and everywhere, go tell it on the mountain, that the old man stay strong. And if you hear it, revelation, oh, this is revelation. Warn them of the road to come. I'm on. Warn them of the road to come. Adana! I lay down in meditation. I took a journey spiritually. My eyes beheld a vision shone clearly in front of me. Now in the vision I saw an old man slowly playing a drum, humming a melody that was strange to me. And he called me, he said, Dana, come. He arose and he showed me a country, beautiful everywhere, a land of endless bounty and riches beyond compare. But there was enough for everybody to meet their material needs. But alas, when the old man showed me my people, they were all overpowered with greed. Oh, and the old man on them on the road, and if you hear him, the revelation time. This the revelation. The revelation, whatever the road, and then it's the go tell it on the mountain over there, and everywhere. Oh, and the old man be one more walk. Oh, one more time.
Hey, revelation time. Revelation time. Lady Adana, the old man beat the drum, made popular by singing Sandra. But Lady Adana does a wonderful rendition of in Revelation time. You all know black people on Revelation. They like the part of the Bible. When you're in shackles, somebody better reveal freedom to you. They like the part of the Bible. Now you all know where you all get that story from. Came across the shores of Africa, manifests itself in Shango and Orisha and spiritualism, as we call it in Guyana. Whoop, 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 whoop. You all know where you all get it from. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Let's start tonight, but these things happen sometimes. You know, people call you just as you're about to start with a very important phone call and are trying to get the man to wrap up, and he wouldn't wrap up. I said, yes, and yeah, wrapping up. Dr. Henry Jeffries here, and tonight we're going to be talking the thing. Welcome to all of you, wherever you're joining us from. Dr. Jeffrey is taking up this subject of the referendum, the proposed referendum on the oil contract. As you know, the oil lobby, as I call them, they threw it out, and the Alliance for Change and the WPA have said that they don't have any problems with it. In our case, we are saying that, look, if you're going to do a referendum on the contract, do a referendum on how the money that comes from the contract will spend. So there's a second one. And then the governance system, shared governance, must also. So we can, do 3 referenda. Each of them is important. Each of them is important. Dr. Jeffrey has raised some very important question. What is a referendum? We've been talking about it, and we assume that you all know all the mechanics of it and so on. What is a referendum? And then this weekend, you raised some more important question. Is the referendum going to be binding? All those questions. We have had a referendum in the Caribbean, going back to the referendum in 1963. 1963, yes. 1950, 1962. As you know, the West Indies Federation from 1958 to 62. It ended when Jamaica went to referendum asking the Jamaicans whether they want to continue in the federation or not. And it was a partisan vote. For the most part, the supporters of the Jamaican Labour Party, which was not in favor of regional integration at that time, they voted no, and the supporters of the People's National Party they voted yes. The no vote edged out. And as you know, Jamaica left the Federation. Dr. Eric Williams said 1 from 10 leaves nothing. And that was the end of that. In recent times, we've had a referenda on CCJ in St. Vincent in Grenada. And in both instances, the no vote won. And again, try as they may, the vote was partisan. So there's a problem with referenda, especially in sharply divided societies. We're going to talk about that. The expert is going to walk us through that. So welcome. I notice you all are here. You all are coming in. Good evening, Dennis Atwell. How are you? Evan? Welcome to Politics 101. We're still reeling from the American election, the outcome. And I've been speaking about, and I find myself every day something else to add. As I told my students today, that it's their burden because people like myself are moving on, because they're going to spend the next 20, 30 years trying to figure out what happened last week, Tuesday, in America. And I was telling my student, that's your problem. The whole problem, you all got to figure that out. When you're in the classes, you want to be very careful how you talk about that. But the students did brace me after class, and they asked me if the election was gray, if there was any gray in the election, and I didn't quite get what they meant. And they said, well, Dr. Hines, you get white and you get black and you get gray. Was there gray, or is it that people vote one way or they vote another way? And I was messed up. I just finished lecturing to them on critical analysis because they got no critical analysis paper for me. So they said, well, they're giving me some critical analysis there. But as I said, they have to figure it out. We'll ask Jeffrey his perspective on that. I think we are ready. So let's bring in Dr. Jeffrey.
Hi, David. How are you?
Well, are you trying, as we would say, are they half and half? Half and half,
Good to be here again with you and your audience.
Yes, a day with me mouth lang, Think the regular. Your take, Dr. Jeffrey, on the American election. None of us could avoid it, whether we are Americanists, electionists, or what. None of us could avoid what we saw. Am I exaggerating when I tell my students they'll have to spend, or they will spend, the next 20 years trying to figure out what happened there, or is this just a blip?
David, for me, the problem of the American election, what we have seen, first of all, we were being told by the pundits that Camilla will win and so on. And but at the same time, if you were listening to them closely, I'm not certain I was, but I heard them saying this numerous times. It's either she's going to win or they're going to be a landslide for one or the other. You have heard them saying that?
Yes.
And it turned out to be a landslide for Donald Trump. And that it is. I mean, I think that from where I'm standing, it appears that two factors led to this. One is the what we call identity politics. The notion that the white people in America feels that they are being submerged. I mean, they are accustomed to ruling America. It's perhaps like when the they first went there and found the Indians, the American Indians there, and the wars and all that took place. Well, they are seeing now that in 20 years ago, 1994, they were 85% of the population. Today, they are 67, 70% of the population. And why is this? Largely by immigration. And they are seeing hundreds of people. Well, now 100 million people look like they want to still come in. So they're saying to themselves, this will serve more. We are going to go the way of the American Indians. These people are going to take over. There's one level of the discourse. But the immigration itself led to other problems. Look, for instance, do you know that Kamala Harris got 41% of the white votes? Something like that.
Yeah.
But you know that's precisely the percent Biden got.
Yes. And Obama got.
So
and
it's not
everybody has
like
gotten since 1964. Lyndon Johnson was the last Democratic candidate to win over 50% of the white vote 60 years ago. Go ahead.
right. You know, so it's the same percent. So that piece of analysis I gave you would seem to suggest that white people should vote more for Trump.
Yes.
Now, if that was it, but they have not, in percentage terms, I mean, the population may have grown a couple percent for one reason, or people identifying themselves as white coming out of Latin America and also there is advantage in doing that. But it's the same percent. So it's not the white people who come out and vote more against Kamala in any serious way. Of course, Trump had a stable hold on that demographic in terms of the majority, but it's not they who come out and do this. But guess what? The Latins themselves, the Latinos, come out en masse and vote for Trump. And now ask yourself, it's Trump that's planning, saying he's going to get rid of them. And they came out and vote for Trump. The Latinos vote 46% for Trump, while in 2020 they only vote 32% for Biden. For Trump, they vote
For Trump, yes.
Mm-hmm. For Trump, 32. Now we get 46. You would have think that there is a contradiction, wouldn't you? This man is threatening to throw you out and all of that and all of that. And now more of you are voting for him. God, that is an analysis you have to do, but it seems to me clear what's happening. By their coming at the millions at the border, what this seems to mean that they are making life precarious for those already there. And they want somebody that will stop them. And maybe because of Republican shenanigans, Biden administration was not able to bring forward a proper border policy. And when they ask Harris what she will do, she seemed to be saying not more than that Biden has been doing. But these people want them stopped. If you look at the blacks, he got some more blacks votes. Yes, 11% at 2020, 13% this time. But it's among, and then I have not done the analysis if it's educated or not educated black, but he had in 2020, 54% of the non-degree people. Today, you got 64.
64, yes.
64 now. You had 54, now we got 63% of the non-degree people. So what you are seeing there, and many of these blacks are non-degree, particularly young ones, the one youngs that are, and it's the young ones that turn to Trump because The immigration is affecting them too. They are talking about people closing down normal hotel and now opening them, calling immigrant hotels and all of that. I spoke a friend of mine who is has been an extremely liberal, and the way he started talking about immigration, African American friend, the way he started, I say, like this man told to Trump. No, he went and vote for them, but he went and vote for the Democrat. But the way he talked about the immigrants affecting African American youths getting jobs and so on, and this is not necessarily you're gonna say jobs Americans don't want. So when you see Trump got now about 20 that amount of vote from them, it is the immigration has been a major problem. And I don't know how they're going to solve it, because even I don't know, Trump, he say he's going to deport 20 million people, or 50, what, how many million? It costs $1 billion to deport 1 million. I mean, so no, it goes to show that America is a successful country. Nobody wants to run to China. Even the Chinese are going to America. It shows that they have soft power, and they have been selling this soft power around the world, that America has soft power. Well, this is what soft power does. Nobody wants to stay in an autocratic country. People would much prefer being in a country like America, although of all the confusion and all the partialities and so on. So you see, that's how I view this. And then from the other standpoint, well, that my take on it. I think that you got to deal with that situation, the border situation with all those immigrants coming. How you going to deal with that is only, I don't know. You got to go back to you got to build soft power in Ghana tremendously to make Guyanese don't want to come to America or any other. You got to deal with the situation, the Chupers and so on in Jamaica, in Venezuela, and Venezuela was one of the nicest countries and one of the more progressive countries at one time. I used to love, when I go to Venezuela the first couple of times, I stopped coming directly back to Ghana. I used to pass through Suriname. I said, this is future shock. When I left Venezuela, and 20 minutes in Ghana in a plane, it's like I'm in another world. Going out of Venezuela. Going out. It's people there all over the world. Now America has got to bring back, to develop, they've got to be part of the process. I know they started that by trying to, but you got too many of these countries around. So they're going to remain the beacon. Once you want to claim you're democratic and they said the economy is a problem. America's been growing more than most of the developed world. What's happened? So it is an economic problem, but it's part of the economic problem that has come about because of migration with a certain class of people, and they've rebelled. So that is my story on that.
Your story, but there's another. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. You say.
But there's another important element. The important element is how Trump will behave in the future, and how does that affect Guyana?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but I was getting there. Go right ahead. Yes.
Right. Now, this is Trump last term. Objectively, this is Trump last term. Trump had to do what he had to do to win his election. But Trump has its own problem. Always president, so far as I understand it, the law says that as president, you can't bring issues against him, but you can put it down till he stops being president. Can't be president again. So he has got to be careful, very careful about what he does in the future, how he deals with the system in the future. He, I believe, has come home to realize the strength of American political institutions and will have to adjust in ways. There are certain places he can't adjust, or else the Republican Party in problem, the migration thing, can't adjust there too much. He's got to do something. They got to make some huge efforts there. But in his personal behavior and erraticness and so on, I think he has to adjust. And I think sensibly, because 4 years is not a long time. It's not even 4 years, it's 2 years. Because if you call a midterm and they only use one of those houses, almost back to square one, almost, but not clearly there. So Trump, in my view, wouldn't, well, I'm just saying how I'll behave, because I know I can't come again. I'm going out there, I might well face lawsuits when I go out there. The system must develop a different level of respect for me. Now, most people are saying behave the same way, run around the world talking about tariffs and all those things, trying to be very transactional in terms of NATO and all of that. I believe that last term has an effect. Your final term has an effect on it. When we come to Ghana in particular, I've argued not here, but recently that there is a bipartisan approach in Parliament dealing with Guyana. Half of the time, Jack Joe and them run out with them teacher's salary the other day with his $100,000 is because they're pressured to do it by others, not us. They're pressured. They have a bipartisan agreement in Guyana because Guyana is not an ordinary or even Commonwealth country. Guyana is a bicommunal society where two large ethnic groups fighting all the time since God McMahon. It settled down a bit during the Cold War because America supported the Burnham largely to keep Jagan at bay after they found out. And PPP can never buy it. Most PPP that grow up in the area can't buy it, but they found out that Jagan sent letter to the Soviet Union saying essentially he's going to bring Guyana and the Caribbean into the communist mode. And that time nobody wanted it. Nobody knew he did it. But obviously he sent a letter, when was it? 1953 or some year like that. What do you think would happen? The CIA going to get it, the CIA. But they're not going to tell you where they get information from. So when he walking around talking, asking Kennedy and all, they're saying, yeah, but you sent a letter. But they can't tell you to get the information. They can't say that, or else they will be pointing to the sources by just merely saying that there might be one, two people that they saw. So effectively, they came back to Soviet Union was gone, PPP came to power, and then what happened? The normal things that happen in our society happen. It's quite clear that you have to have a different kind of governance in Guyana. I think that's major. One of the reasons that Granger got himself in problem, because he promised and did not deliver. Promised and did not deliver. And instead of delivering, he seemed to, and I told you this at many times before, long before this, I said, instead of delivering, he went on setting up Ministry of Citizenship, which demonstrate quite clearly is, and so that was that. I think that they Americans believe, not Trump, because he was there at that point of time. He knows there's a bipartisan approach, so that you could talk about the former ambassador as much as you like. You can't get rid of her that easy because of the very bipartisan approach in in to countries like Guyana. And it depends on how, if Trump wants to break that. I I don't know that he would want to, because there are not only Guyana, there's Cyprus, there are others in that same mold. And it would be best, although he's not keeping on Pompeo, who was part of this thing. Apparently he's not.
Pompeo is right. Pompeo is right in Guyana now.
Oh, Pompeo.
Pompeo is there. He's there yesterday and today.
Okay.
On a private visit, visiting the vice president and the president and so on.
Yeah. Well, it's Pompeo set up that little deal there so he must be here saying, "Hey, gentlemen, one time they didn't want anything to do with biometrics at all." Suddenly they want biometrics because the EU wrote it. The EU said this is important. The CARICOM group that came and said, at the minimum, you must have a new list. They said the minimum. I don't want, well, so Pompeo, I didn't know he was here, but in my view, Guyana it depends on how Trump move forward. Is he going to recognize the reality of the international system, still be the erratic four-storm president he is, or calm down and work the system, work it to his advantage, thing. I mean, if the Chinese, for instance, dumping on you got to restart. For me, but you got to demonstrate it. The World Trade Organization is there. It has all the rules for you to do so. So that's my take on that. But I believe that the bipartisan thing will largely hold.
It will hold. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here, immigration, he points, is quite an important issue, quite a complex issue. The United States, I think it was in 1924, so it's 100 years ago, they passed what was called the Johnson-Reed Act. Basically, what that law did was that it controlled immigration, migration into the United States, that the number of people who came in would be based on the number of people from that country already inside of America. So what it did, was that it encouraged migration from European countries, because, the Germans and British and so on were the original white people there. And it restricted migration from Southern Europe. So the Southern Europeans, that's a trickle, restricted from Asia, in particular China, because they began to blame Chinese for all the problems that were happening at the time. And of course, restricted from Latin America and so forth. So there is the blueprint there in the Johnson-Reed Act as to how they can control migration. Whether they're going to read through it or not, we shall see. Dr. Jeffrey, I'm interested in the bipartisan thing, because I have been trying to kind of calm people down who've been calling me and saying, no, that Trump is there, the opposition, Clark Duck, the opposition is not going to be getting anything through. Jack Dio last week said he's going to work with Trump to get Rickford Burke and others. I don't know what is happening here. Are you hearing me?
I'm now hearing you, but I'm not seeing you. Something's going
Right,
on.
right. I don't know. The we'll see if we can fix it. I think we're back now.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes. Jack Dio said he will work with the Trump administration to push back against the lies that are peddled by the opposition and so forth, giving the impression as though um, there is a special relationship. And he did say there is a special relationship between the PPP and the Trump people and so forth. So people are, of course, quite concerned about what that would mean for the opposition. I'll ask you to comment on that, but I also want to put something else on the table here, and that is the transactional nature of Trump's approach. And we have Venezuela next door. We already saw that Biden kind of toned down on Venezuela. They were able to work out an arrangement with Venezuela because, of course, Venezuela has all that oil. I mean, many times the oil that we have. So it seems as though the Americans, whether they be Democrats or Republicans, would want to approach more with Venezuela. And then you have Guyana, Venezuela claiming Guyana. And given Trump's transactional nature, given what we hear he's saying about the war in between Russia and Ukraine, that he's likely to urge them to make a deal, which is likely to be in Russia's favor. Do you think that he could reach for such a deal between Guyana and Venezuela, whereby Guyana gives Venezuela something and they settle the matter? So I want you to react to that and also react to this special arrangement that Jack Dio seems to be hinting at between himself and Trump and the people.
Well, the special arrangement was when they want to get rid of Granger. The first thing you want to do is call the opposition. There's not no special arrangement. They're all over the world. If Granger doing something that they don't like, they call the opposition. Jack, there is not a special arrangement. And if you are telling lies about Jack, don't go and tell the American State Department about lies. They would already know. You see, he think he's talking, he's speaking as if he would be speaking with people with a long historical knowledge. Why do you think he had to change this teacher's wages? Instead of giving everybody 6%, he had to go and do something else. They know what he's doing. They know that, in a sense, if he wants to stay in power as an ethnic party, which he is, he got to do those things. So he ain't got exposed work. They know too that if he has one way of proving it to the world, have an independent ethnic disparity analysis. If you think that Black people have benefited under the PPP for all these years, have an independent ethnic disparity analysis and demonstrate it. Call the UN to do it. Let somebody, and let's say it and show that they have. You ain't got to tell nobody like this old time politics. Everybody knows it's where that is. So this is a whole lot of crap. If Pompeo might be here indeed, but Pompeo might be here to say that, listen, we got to stay with the deal we had and move on, not to any other thing than that. So that does not necessarily follow that because Trump and he was there, the PPP was there, the PP was there because they were the right people to be there at the point of time for what the US wanted to do. That's that. It's not there because they love them or anything such thing. It is because they had to deal with a specific issue. In terms of Venezuela, we yes, Trump is transactional, but remember he was even transactional, and I mentioned that before. He was even transactional with NATO. NATO countries must pay. They must pay the right share and all that. Okay, that's correct, true. That's correct too, because one country can't be bearing the brunt of everything, and you are playing less than 2% of your GDP in defense and all. So yes, you should come forward and pay whatsoever is reasonable for you to pay. So I have no problem with that. So that was not like an amoral thing he's saying, but it's how he intended to implement it. It's like a immediately get, that's the impression he gave. I doubt if that would happen again. The story Russia is another thing. I mean, even that one, I believe he can talk down. So I don't think that he will go against what the United States was saying all the time, that Guyana, the border has been closed. Remember, it's the United States almost went to war with Britain to get the 1899 agreement. It's the United States get the arbitration going. Britain didn't want an arbitration, and the arbitration closed the issue. So, yes, there are various levels of collaboration. They can watch the Floridians too that are Venezuelans. Remember, they have been hurt by Maduro badly. So he can't just walk in and make a deal with Maduro and the Venezuelan group without thinking it clearly true. And I don't think the border issue with Ghana would ever become part of any transaction for him to sell out, because then he's got to sell out the whole of the West almost, because all of them, it's over and it's in the courts. You might say that's a formality. That's in the courts is one thing, is who can influence the courts, and all of that. So we can go down that road. But that's what I am saying is, my opinion is that he would not go to that level to try, because I think he'll be bucking there'll be too many stops on the way. So in terms of the border problem, no. I think he has enough problems to think of if he just want to make a deal with the Venezuelans without taking the thousands of Venezuelans are voting for him in Florida.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here. Dr. Jeffrey, let's turn our attention to the issue that has occupied your last two columns, and that is a referendum. As you know, the oil people floated the idea of a referendum on the oil contract that was signed in 2016. The AFC and the WPA, they have said they would have no problem with such a referendum. We haven't heard anything fulsome from the PNC and the PPP as yet. But you have been interrogating the issue of referendum and what are the challenges to having a referendum of that nature in Guyana. Talk us through the challenges of such a referendum.
Well, let me start with the 1980 referendum that Ghana had. I didn't see you mention that.
1978.
Yes, 78, right, for the
Yes,
1980 Constitution.
I forgot that one, yes.
Right. Well, what does that do? Burnham can't get consensus with the PPP, call a referendum. Now let me say two things. Let me say that Burnham rigged the election for the referendum. But assuming what was the PPP couldn't get consensus with Burnham and call a referendum in an ethnically divided society at a time when they had a majority, would a referendum be valid for Black people if they stand no to the issue on the state? So referendums are not necessarily a good thing unless you are prepared to do all sorts of things to get them properly, uh, uh, re- for them to reflect justice and equality. The best thing is always, of course, Northern Ireland, or we are talking about Northern Ireland, the Protestant and the Catholic, they have been quarreling, killing one another. 3,000 of them died. And they had a referendum. You know why they had a referendum? They had a referendum because they had a consensus on the agreement. The Good Friday Agreement, they came to a consensus, and then they put that consensus to a referendum. Even the Ian Paisley and all of them might have been against the referendum, but they never go out and might be against the agreement, but went about and said, oh, we're going to criticize it from within the agreement. Let the agreement pass, but we're going to criticize from it. And I think you had a 75%, 71% majority there. So referendums are, well, I'm not going to go and talk about the referendums. The Swiss are known for them. No? Switzerland, direct vote. They put all manner of things to direct. They had about 4 of these things every single year. So they put important issues straight to the people, and the people can vote on those things. So when you are going to referendum, you got to ask yourself a number of questions. I think I put those in my thing last week. You got to ask yourself, is this referendum going to be binding or just elective? If the government want to do it, they don't do it. If the government want, first of all, you got to ask yourself, why is it I want this referendum? Anybody ever ask that? I mean, you say you're going to a referendum, but you might be able to tell me that I have not yet seen what is the purpose of the referendum. We want the referendum to do what? Anybody in Guyana know? Anybody tell them clearly what is it you are trying to do when you want this referendum? Well, what is it you are trying to do? What is it you are trying to say? I am not certain. Are you saying that if the PPP, if you get a referendum, I don't know what kind of referendum, and the PPP come out against it, yeah, and you win or lose, the PPP necessarily go follow the referendum because people say so? You think that all the PPP supporters would come out and let it and vote against them because of the referendum? Not gonna happen. Not in Guyana. So what is the point of the referendum? What is it you're trying to say to demonstrate how many Guyanese feel? I don't think you have to do that. Chris Ram did this poll and he says 70 something. I think it's all Guyanese feel that this thing is a, and I don't care whether they feel that the Guyana was undone by this thing, by the contract. You gotta go to no referendum to demonstrate that. So what is the point of the referendum? That's what I am not certain of yet. Merely to demonstrate that all Guyanese, Chris Paul did that. I mean, what is it? To bind the government? So you want to go with a binding referendum? I don't know. So Somebody got to explain more than is going on here as to what is the purpose of it. Indeed, if you want to get a binding referendum, you will have to get the agreement of the PPP
The PPP and the PNC.
and the PNC. If you get the agreement of PNC and the PPP, where you want a referendum?
Right. I see your logic. I see your
You know
logic.
what I mean?
Right.
So no. So when my concern is, but I've written about what referendums are, the problems, how when you're going to referendum, how you can structure them, and you can look at the America. That's why American Constitution is so hard to change. Not only the Senate's got passed it by some 2/3 or something, but the population and every Senate in the country. So
three quarters
three-quarters
of both houses.
Yes. So it's almost impossible because nobody trusts majoritarianism. A simple majority vote can disrupt the whole situation like that. So I don't know, but you should be able to explain to us, because you say you agree the referendum, and what you are just introducing concept. And let me say this: referendums are normally for one issue.
Yes.
The minute you start introduce other issue, it become an election of sorts, because you ain't gonna got consensus on umpteen issue. So effectively, a referendum should be on one issue directly, go and vote for one thing. But since then, I heard the WPA say what you are saying too. They want it on this. You just mentioned 3 referendums.
Right.
Yeah.
That is why we say our support for that is conditional.
Well, perhaps the first one you will need some sort of. Well, if you're going to go for oil, as I said, is a symptom of the problem.
Right.
The one is governance. If you had proper governance, Exxon won't get away with what it did.
Right.
It never could. So, and everybody's getting away with all sorts of other things. So the first one you should do is the one about governance, how we are governed. And therefore, you think y'all are the PPN getting no consensus on that. So that will be a little election by itself.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, here we're talking about the American elections and the lessons for us here in Guyana, the implications for us in Guyana, the whole issue of a referendum. And as I said, Dr. Jeffrey has spent the last 2 columns raising what are the challenges. Referenda, as always, in the west of the United States, in states like California, Arizona, Washington State, Oregon, they have a lot. Almost every cycle they have referenda and initiatives. And those things were put in those states' constitution by the progressives, because the progressives of that time were very popular on the West Coast. These were new states, they were non-slave states. And so the progressives were very popular, and they put those things in the constitution. And so they're accustomed to voting on initiatives and referendum on the West Coast of the United States of America. You build up a culture, as you say, Switzerland. It has a culture that, because it assumes a certain kind of non-partisanship to begin with, as you've pointed out. And it's always, a risk in partisan bicommunal states like ours there. Dr. Jeffrey, all of a sudden, as you said, the PPP seems to be saying it may not be so rigid against biometrics and so forth. And you hinted that there may be some external influence there. There's a feasibility study before GCOM at the moment, and they're saying the constraints are cost because they said the machine will cost $20 million. Time, that they're not going to have enough time to implement it. And of course, Nandalal's story that the thing may break down if you have blackout. Your comments.
Man, a couple of weeks ago, I'll show you a country with 20 million people do this thing in 6 weeks. So, you remember Ghana, with the help of the European Union. Indeed, it's the European Union who said that who also said that you need to have a proper list and all of this, that what did and did not happen under the last regime is the CARICOM. If you do, we shouldn't be saying nothing about cost. We are putting flowers on highways with the public funds. We are badly governed, but putting flowers on highways and all sort of thing, a carpet and all sort of. So cost cannot be a $20 million chicken feed for them now. So that is nonsense. Anybody that tell you about cost telling you is an obstructionist. That is nonsense. Time, as I said, Ghana do the thing in 12 or 6 weeks. 6 weeks, I think. 20 million people or something. I said the other day. So you got time. All of this is the whole nonsense about not having it, because the PPP knows very well that thousands of people voted the last time that were not supposed to be voting. They know it. I don't see why they should be concerned. If that is not true, sure, just do it. I mean, if the PNC are also are wicked and evil and so on, and I got the feeling even the PNC don't come out hard for it because they know their story too. So effective. I mean, come on. But the GCOM itself need revamping. The GCOM itself need revamping. I mean, and people have said that the Carter Center has been saying that for long, and they put the present thing in the Constitution. How you can do that? I think that's the hardest thing to do. You see, even in states like Georgia, the commission is bipartisan.
Right. It is.
Yeah. It's not a problem. What the problem is that nobody wants to lose. The minute you come in a system where no one would want to lose, bipartisan breakdown. Guyana. And once Trump come in and he don't want to lose, trouble comes. Because people can be unbiased if people are willing to lose or not lose. But in Guyana, we have been like this from time immemorial. People don't want to lose. From our political thing in the modern era, that's it. People have been doing all sort of things. The British has been doing it to Chedi Jagan and so on for their own political reasons. So they ain't got none. Nobody hands are clean in this kind of thing. What your objectives are. That is very important. And their objective was to stop Chedi from bringing communism to the Latin America. That was their objective. And nobody PPP person can stand up now and say, Chedi Jagan, that was not Chedi Jagan's intention. We used to say it's perhaps, even me, I said perhaps, but now we see the letter he wrote and sent to them and said that his intention was. Nobody, no PPP person can come up and say that wasn't his intention. And that is what led to his overthrow. And I agree with the people to overthrow him, because I wasn't going into the bush to fight no guerrilla warfare with the Guyana army, because I don't prepare to live under Stalinism. And that would have been you would have ended up having to do if that was attempted. So I told Jagan that all the time. And I was a friend to Jagan. I used to tell Jagan, you're an old communist. Yes, look at all your friends. My mother tell me, look at my friends. People tell you who
Tell
you
you who
are.
you are.
I didn't know anything about the letter until recently. And so, so did I answer your question? Go on
Yes,
ahead.
yes, 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 yes. Quickly
So,
before, go ahead.
no, you,
Yeah,
I'm
quickly before we go, Norton announced that he is um, going to meet with Nigel Yu shortly. How significant is that from where you stand?
from my standpoint, they had to meet sooner or later. It's not even if they want to meet, they had to meet. Because I don't see them going individually against the BBB. So I mean, when they say so, I say, okay, they're going to meet. And we hope there's going to be some kind of rapprochement. So, and I'm not going to try to prejudice that by saying anything else. All I'm saying, and you should join the meeting. You should say, you should have a tripartite meeting because you were there too. And therefore, before we meet and y'all make deals, and we can, now we gotta meet with both of you to cut deals. Gentlemen, why don't we all meet one time? We used to be together. It seems that this is what the meeting is about. Why don't we all meet? Because the two of them gonna meet, they're gonna cut some deal, then you're gonna start and say, okay, then you got who you want to discuss with now. A partnership of the two who gonna be ganging up against you because they know what they want. So I don't know. Since I heard that, I said, okay, let me see how this develop. They should meet. They gotta meet. You gotta meet. All y'all gotta meet. If anything positive is gonna happen here. And therefore, if you're gonna have a meeting, have the meeting of the broad sector. Let me sit down and ask ourselves, first of all, what will be the agenda of the meeting? And then need to trash out the agenda. What is it that we want? So I don't mind. I think it's a good move forward. Nigel, a good chap. Aubrey is a good chap. I mean, you are all right.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, we did meet, the three of us met on the matter of biometrics and the voters list and so forth. And so we have that meeting
Yeah,
on those
exactly.
issues. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here, walking us through some of the issues that have been agitating our society, our country over the last couple of weeks. Dr. Jeffrey, thank you again for coming through. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And
Thank you very much.
by then, some things may become clearer.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Yes.
We all hope so. For all Guyanese, we hope so. Thank you very much, David, and your
Thank
audience.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And to you, the audience, thank you all for coming through another evening. We'll be back tomorrow evening, same time, same place, for another edition of Politics 101. Thank a couple of you. I think 2 people or so sent in their donations overnight. I don't have the names in front of me, but we did make an appeal last evening that don't forget your little donation. It goes a long way towards helping us. Thank you to Natalie and thank Linda, my countrywoman. They are always prompt with their monthly donations. And like I said, 2 people send donations overnight. I will acknowledge you tomorrow. And for those of you who have forgotten, please remember, as Louis Bennett said, your remembrance must remember. Your remembrance, remember. That poem, Love Letter, my remembrance, remember the first day you catch me. I come off a tram car, a bus was to me right, a car sweeps past me left face, and I stand up stiff with fright. My jaw drop, my mouth open like when jackass start for yarn. My heart start to go boop, doop, boop, doop, boop, boop, doop, boop. And I know one make a barn. Again, you all don't get me started with West Indian poetry and West Indian literature. Louis Bennett, one of the first persons, along with our own Wordsworth McAndrew, making Creolese part of our standard literature. Our language, our first language. I think I saw Granger recently saying that we should start teaching it in school. I am for that. Our first language is not English. English is the second language. The first language is Creolese. As Granger said, that is what you're introduced to when you're born. That's the first thing you hear. Don't matter how you hear them, middle class people just run up their mouth in public. When they're home, it's bare Creolese, to quote you all young people. It's bare Creolese that is be talking, because it's we first language, we native language, we resistance language. Again.